Hail and welcome to the Black Tower. I'm your host, your guide, your brother, the Sorcerer Armanasul. Welcome to another episode of the Sorcerer's Corner, coming to you live from the big comfy couch. Oh, hell yeah. There are a few things I wanted to go over tonight. In one of my previous videos, I was communicating with somebody, and they had wanted to see the new Necronomicon, the 31st anniversary edition. So, to start off this video, I thought I'd go ahead and show it a little bit better, a little bit clearer. It's a very nice book. It's almost 12 inches tall and about 5 inches wide. It's a very big book, very beautiful. Pages are thick. When you turn it, it feels like you got 2 pages. You're not turning 2 pages, you're turning 1 page. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to find a picture of one of the gates or seals or something to show you how large the drawings and writing is. It's in big print, which is good for me because I wear glasses, and as I'm getting older, it's one of those things where bigger writing makes better. Alright, that's how big one of the drawings are. Very nice book, well worth it. Even has a silk ribbon bookmarker built into it. Very nice, very nice. It's a very good book. All right, with that out of the way, I wanted to welcome you to the Black Tower and go over a subject. In the Necronomicon, it talks about the old faith. Okay. Well, a couple months back, I was doing some research. I checked out a E.A. Coetting video, and he was introducing the Nabatean. He was talking about the Nabateans and where the idea for his magical circle came from. Well, I decided I'd do some research on the Nabatean culture, history, and their language, and so forth and so on. Boy, I was not prepared for what I would find. I was quite shocked when I ran across this. They call it block gods. Basically, the Nabateans believed that the mountains were the divine gateways for the gods, that a god dwelt within a mountain. So when you think of the lore stuff of Tiamat's body being stretched to create the universe and stuff, the cosmos, and you talk about the mountain of Mashu and the mountain of Kur, you can see where the Necronomicon got its influence from. Now, the Nabatean culture was pre-Islamic. So, and from what I've read and what I've understood about it, it makes a lot of sense that that possibly the Mad Arab could have taken his workings and stuff from this old tribe of people and their traditions. Now, whether this is true or not, I do not know. I consider myself a bit of a scholar because I do research a lot of things. And though it may seem like I'm jumping gorges and connecting dots that may or may not connect, I only do so if it's validated, if it can be shown that that's where it could have came from. Like, for example, in the Necronomicon, where the gate seals are square in dimension. Well, that seems kind of strange in today's magical way of working magic and ritual and stuff, But if you research into Nabatean culture and stuff, you find out that the term block gods represented the square that they would cut into the mountainside. And it was the gate, check that, the gate to reach the gods. Now, in Nabatean cuttings and stuff from their culture or whatever, from these carvings in the sides of mountains, they would have what looked like steps. Like, they'd have the square cut out in the mountainside, and then they would have also cut into the square what looked like steps, kind of like the ziggurat, and the steps of the ladder of light and so forth and so on. And when you look at their drawings, at their works, you're like, wow, holy shit, that's where all this comes from. Now, I didn't stop there, I went to do further research and stuff. Apparently there were 5 main gods, and then there was the one god that was in the mountain. Now, it's important to understand how their culture viewed the universe. First off, mountains, the reason why they were considered holy, sacred things was because that the ancient people believed that the mountain held the sky up so that it would not crush and fall upon the earth. So they saw the mountain as, a sacred thing, as a God dwelling inside it. Kind of like if you've seen the Greek thing with the figure holding the globe upon his back, Atlas, I believe, was his name. You can kind of see where maybe that might have been garnered later on by the Greeks, is, the theory or thought that the mountain held the sky up. Once again, this may seem like me just jumping to conclusions or connecting dots, but when all the dots connect and they actually do make a design, then it is not my opinion. Then it is a conclusion that can be drawn upon by the information given. Forgive me for not being able to post the research where I go and I get my stuff. Just look up Nabatean culture. Nabatean, I believe. Nabatean. And just check it out. Just look up stuff. See what you can find. But anyway, the thing is that when you're talking about the old ways, you're talking about ways that predate religions in general, you're going to find that religions wiped them out. Like, for example, the Nabatean culture and way of life, it may continue in certain ways and certain methods and manners, but it doesn't do so in the fullness that it used to. And the reason why is kind of simple. If you think of in the Far East, you have the Bedouin who travel all over the place. They've been doing that for thousands of years. They're still tribal nomadic people, and civilization hasn't managed to totally crush their way of life. Not totally, and hopefully they manage to continue to make it. It's kind of like the Yazidi. These old cultures, they aren't necessarily the true faith, the true belief, the thing you're supposed to be doing, no. But they are where most of what we now know as magic, it's where it evolved from. It was its beginning, its roots. Kind of like how they talk about the cradle of civilization of where life came from, whether it was Africa, whether it was Atlantis, whether it was whatever. Me personally, I believe that Atlantis I'm not saying that it could not exist on the world level. I'm not saying there wasn't an island with some technologically advanced people, but I believe that it may be like an astral plane, that it may be found on astral planes more so than an actual physical plane, which that's not to start an argument or fight. That's just my personal opinion, but it's just an opinion. It's not fact. It's not fact until it's proven or shown one way or another. And when there is no proof one way or another, it does not mean that it does not exist. It just means it hasn't been discovered yet. Its truth still lies hidden. With that in mind, I'm going to continue this. But anyway, so these Nabateans, they worship the mountain. But check this. When they would carve in the squares in the side of the mountain, it represented the steps that they would take. If you could imagine it while doing a ritual, when you're doing your visualization and casting seals before you and gates below you and above you and before you and so forth and so on. Imagine that that's kind of how these ancient practitioners were. And they were known as Majnun, which is Arabic for magician or sorcerer. It's a magical person, if you will, for lack of better words. Anyway, so these Majnun would, carve these squares in the side of the mountain and have these pictographs, and below it they might have in Nabatean script the name of the god that they dedicate that particular gate or square to. And and so forth and so on. There's not a whole lot known about as far as what rites they performed, what rituals were done, seasons and times and stuff like that. But there is still some information that you can garner from that. But when I was researching it, I was looking into it. So they would call upon their gods through these squares, kind of like how in the Necronomicon, the gates seem kind of squarish in a sense. It's because it's done in the exact same way, but you wouldn't know that if you hadn't, if you if you had never seen that kind of working before. Now, I've always thought that certain things are odd in the Necronomicon. Not wrong, just odd, because when I think of practicing shamanism, uh, scrying, gazing, astral travel, dreamscaping, soul retrieval, so forth and so on. When I think of high magic, low magic, ritual magic, ceremonial magic, which ritual magic and ceremonial magic, sometimes the lines do blur, and they're one and the same, and then sometimes they're not. But with all these different traditions and stuff, you pick up pieces. Now, for years, ever since I was a child and I heard the story of Babel, about how Babel fell, because man was trying to reach the heavens so they become greater than God, or so it was said in the Bible, or whoever, whether it's church, whatever. I always had a thought. If during the tower was being built, and the tongues were split, and the nations divided, and so forth and so on, I was like, you know what I think a worthy goal would be? To recreate the Tower of Babel. Not to overthrow God, but to unite. To unify all the pieces that were lost to us. To make all people one people. To make all beliefs one belief. Make all paths one path. Now, I as the years went by, I didn't do this necessarily from a religious zealot standpoint, or from, religious fervor that can take over you, that, my way is the only way, my way is the right way. No, I did so because, to me, it was an honorable thing, because if mankind has forgotten so much and has lost so much, then there's got to be somebody out there looking to find the pieces, to put them back together, so that mankind has the full puzzle, has the full picture, if you will, to look at. And so, a life goal of mine was to recreate the Tower of Babel. I don't mean a physical tower, but, more of one that's implied, kind of like a mental construct, if you will. Unify all the pieces. It's where I decided upon my my magical motto in Hermeticism, where I was going through the grades of the Golden Dawn when I was, going through all the different grades and things. Took up a magical motto, Omnia Sint Unum, all things are one, because it was my consciousness to unite all the different pieces so that it could be understood. Now, throughout my lifetime, I've had some really interesting times of combining pieces. Sometimes a circle does not fit in a square hole. It just doesn't. And the idea isn't to cut and shave and make it fit. The idea is to be patient. Persistent, but patient. To find the pieces that do fit, you have to research, you have to study, you have to go to lengths that most people don't have the patience for. But if it's important to you, you'll find it. If it's important to you, if it means enough to you, you'll keep looking, you'll keep searching, you'll keep digging. And that's what I've spent pretty much most of my life doing, is finding all these pieces. And then when I found the Necronomicon, I was thrown to my lap, and I first started digging into it. For once, it gave me, I could sense that there was a greater truth, and that it was a tool to help me discover these pieces that I've always wanted to put together, to get shit to make sense. Because even though I was young and disillusioned and thought that the Bible held the keys and all this other stuff, the Bible holds keys, yes, greatest grammar ever written, but it was also written by man. And this isn't necessarily to go into a rant of how it was to control the people or anything like that, but I say this all because, to me, coming up raised in religion, I couldn't believe for 1 second that, half the stuff being told, because I was like, that doesn't even make sense. Some things I was like, how does that work? How does that happen? Like them telling you, oh, you're gonna burn in a hellfire. I was sitting there going, wait a minute. Now, if the body itself were thrown into fire, I could see being burnt in torment. But how does the soul, which is energy, burn? That made no sense. And there were, and that's just one example of many that made no sense in my head. And so I could not believe these things people were telling me. I could not, for the life of me, believe the words I was reading to be truth because they made no sense. It just wasn't logical at all. And not that, there aren't things in magic that are illogical or, that don't conform to rules of laws and physics, but because it doesn't. But the things that should didn't. And that's when it came to me that there were a lot of pieces missing from the Bible, that somebody wrote one hell of a story. And then when I got a little bit older, I realized something. If you'll take away the story and you just kind of like push it off to the side and you just read it for what it is, there are keys and secrets hidden within it that are actually based on old belief systems, old practices, the old faith, if you will. But see, you have to get past your polarization. You have to get past your own bitterness and anger towards the religion itself. And you just have to get over yourself, really. And you have to get over opinion. Because sometimes truth is cold, And in that sense, you have to be that exact same way when you're searching for the truth. Just because you don't like the truth doesn't mean it's not still truth. And by truth, I am not trying to say that there is one truth, ineffable truth. No. Ain't like that. And as I've said in many videos before, many truths. There's no such thing as one truth. There are many truths. And some are false to others, and some are real to others, and so forth and so on. So the truth is a lie, and the lie is the truth. In that kind of a mixed up inside-out world, upside down, inside out, so forth and so on. The whole Alice in Wonderland thing. And so, with this in mind, when I ran across this information about the Nabateans, I was really blown away. I was like, holy fucking shit. How cool is this? And so the first thing I did was, try to get a hold of a few of my brothers on the Black Tower. I was like, hey, you guys got to check this out, So I'm like linking it to them and stuff and, just walking them through it. And then upon further study of the language itself, for a lot of people that disdain the Hebraic language and faith and magical practices for it, you're filled of free and think the way you want to about it all you want. But, when the letters mean something like teeth, cross, ox, so forth and so on, I also found out that the Nabatean language was much the same way. And then, and only then, through the Nabatean did I come to understand the amulet of Ur that the priest of Necro had sent me. Anybody who's seen the amulet of Ur from the Necronomicon, you will notice it. It's not coming up. There we go. It's got a circle and an X in the bottom corner of it. What does that mean? Well, it's the womb. I'd have to go back over my notes and things, and some of the things I posted to remember exactly what it was, but it had a numerical meaning, and it had a word association. It had to do with protection against death. That is cool as shit. It's the preserver of life. So the circle with the X in it is the preserver of life in the amulet of Ur. And that is so neat. And then on top of that, it refers to Tiamat as well. So Tiamat is the preserver of life. Now, I don't expect you to take my word for it. Like I said, I want you to do research. Find the truth for yourself. But I thought it was interesting that everywhere I've looked, there's been no information to explain the symbolisms and the stuff about the amulet of Ur, the gates, or anything like that until I went to delving into the Nabatean script, just because, Mr. E.A. Coedding was talking about this magical circle that's the only circle you'll ever need and all this other stuff. And I was more blown away at the language because I was like really curious about the script, because I've seen Sanskrit and pictographs and I think that's how you pronounce that, pictographs, something like that. Sanskrit, hieroglyphs, so forth and so on. The dagger language, the Sumerian Babylonian writing. For the life of me, can't remember the name of it. But But anyway, languages was always my thing. I always liked the written language because I always knew that there was a meaning behind it. Every dash and every curl and carve. It's why the book even tells you, change not a word or a mark, because it is sacred, whether you understand or know its meaning or not. It is sacred. Its numbers are sacred. Its shape is sacred. I think I've said before that in the Necronomicon, when it talks about the Minu of Anki, the Minu means the shape, and the number of the spirit is known as a Minu, which is kind of interesting. But, but when you put all these pieces together, you get a beautiful picture. It, helps you to understand a little bit better, a little bit more about what you're doing. Some people are happy to pick up a book and just start casting the spell. They don't have to know what the spirit's attached to it. They don't have to know, the ins and outs of it. But for someone like me, I like to create my own rites, my own rituals. The Necronomicon is a great book, but one of the things that it does not have are fail-safes. It does not have any kind of safety nets. It has nothing like that. When it talks about, that there are no effective banishings, oh boy. And people have gone on at length about, using this and using that and so forth and so on. Well, I and my wife were sitting down talking, and she's a witch, so she's got this. And she was telling me that what she recognized or realized about the difference between my working with the Necronomicon and her witchcraft is the fact that in her witchcraft, they have fail-safes. They have, they word things a certain way. I release all that does not serve me. So I call upon that which serves me, that which aids mankind. It's all important in the wording, so forth and so on, because it displaces your intent, and it also sets the boundaries and the order by which things can come around. Now, the reason why I'm breaking down into this particular subject about the wording and stuff is because 2 days ago, well, let me start before that. About a week ago, started just feeling just the, and just didn't feel like doing anything or, just whatever, and I couldn't figure out what it was, and I just felt cruddy. And my wife was feeling cruddy. We're both just like, wow, this is bad when we both go down. We thought, oh, maybe it's just seasonal something or other. Well, 6 days in, all of a sudden, I'm just like, you know what, something ain't right. This not normal, because when you clean your house and you disinfect shit and everything else, and, and you're taking your vitamin C and you're doing all this, that, and the other, and you're still not perked up, something's not right. And everything physical is symbolic of something spiritual. So the first thing I decided to do was that I was going to purify my house. I was going to do a house cleansing. And I decided on an exorcism. The one with the bread and the salt, the Anushu Bam Gigapsu Kisha Giga Garshagda Sisi Amaradaya. That one where you offer the bread and the salt. It's interesting. I always thought, I am constantly surprised and amazed, almost 23 years into this, and I am still amazed at how powerful this stuff is and how quickly the spells work, and and these spirits, how they answer your call and so forth and so on. But I've always thought that particular thing was something that you did in honor there at your altar. I did not know this until the other day. I had went and took up the Aga Maseratu, the bowl of the watcher, filled it a third of the way with water, sprinkled sea salt, blessed in the name of Anki 40 times, placed my black triple candle dead center of it that's in a glass jar, lit it, did the calling of the 3 watchers and your watcher, and it became ablaze. Well, I then had my wife carry it for me while I took my book and I was doing the calling, and I went to the back of my house and worked my way to the front. I had left the back door open and the screen up because when you're cleansing and purifying and you're trying to get stuff out of your house, you need to leave a way for it to go out, whether it's an open door, an open window, screen window, whatever. So anyway, started at the back of the house. Did it in a clockwise fashion, pushing it out into the hallway, and then went to the bathroom and the closets and everything. In each corner, I sprinkled the water 3 times. saying the spell at each corner, not once per room, in each corner, visualizing light, purifying. About the time we got halfway down the hallway, I went to feeling like this. I could feel like I was actually pushing something out. I was like, wow, what the hell? Well, long story short, we finished out the house and got it out the back. And as soon as I got it to the back door and pushed it out, immediately I could tell a big difference in the house. Now, I'm going to tell you a secret. There is something called the sign of the elder ones. It is a very important seal or symbol. When you're doing exorcisms, banishings, things like that, and you're pushing stuff out, you've also got to seal them. Well, how do you seal them? You seal them with the sign. You know, you have the aura, the aga, and the bandar. Well, the aga is known as the elder sign. It is the sign of Enki, master of magicians. And at this, after I'd cleansed the room or closet, I would make, with my hand, I would make the symbol of the elder sign in the air floating between to seal it. This is how I also sealed out the way to the outside so that the energies couldn't come back in, so that they were out. And you bind it like that, you know. And it was beautiful. It worked very well, very great. I mean, it was powerful. It was a lot more powerful than I could have imagined. I mean, it was pretty tough, you know, if you like that sort of thing. Now, for about 7 or 8 years, all I practiced was exorcisms, banishings, cleansings, purifications. So, you know, I had quite a bit of time, and I was performing what is known as King of the Exorcist, which is a role of one and a priest that, like if you're in a group of your group of magicians, they always have what is known as the King of the Exorcist, who must go through a purification of his own body and soul, mind, and so forth and so on. And he stands silent in a circle drawn on the inside part of the circle, and he stands there, and his only job is that if a spirit becomes unruly or gets out of hand, he begins chanting bindings, commands, or banishings. The King of the Exorcist is also responsible at the end of the ritual to be able to cleanse and purify the other members of the rites, so forth and so on. So it was a very important, very serious task I took. It's a role that I took to heart, and I loved it, and it's helped me out a lot. Problem is, you make a lot of enemies. I don't know if they'll ever tell you that, but if you play the role of the exorcist, and I'm not talking about some Hollywood movie crap, I'm talking about the real deal, you will run across things that straight up tell you, I may not can touch you, priest, but I can screw up everything around you. And it is with that you must be diligent. You must be aware that they are patient and they will wait you out. And so you must always guard against and protect yourself. I'm trying to find it. Okay, that middle one there. That middle one is the aga. Like you see the aura, aga, and then the bandar. The aga's in the middle. That's the one you want to use to seal. Like I said, it's a very beautiful book. I love this book. I'm not one to show off stuff or anything like that because I'm not flashing. Oh, look what I have and blah blah blah. That was $113 book right there, man. That's wow. Imagine what you do with $113. Like wow. But it was a gift. My lovely wife bought it for me, and it's awesome. Like I said, you would have thought 22, 23 years into this, I would have already had one, but they're expensive, even if you can find them used and all this other stuff. But I was lucky, and we found a brand new one, and reasonably priced, for about $13 less. I could have bought a used one, so what's the difference? $13 brand new, I'm the only one. The funny thing is about the Necronomicon, and I hadn't thought about this because I still have the original Necronomicon paperback that I had since I was a kid. When you first buy the book and you first own it, weird shit can start to happen in your area unless you connect with the book, unless because there is a spirit, energy, a power connected to that text, to the workings itself, to the words, to the book, no matter what form it's in, whether you wrote it by hand, whether you went and bought a copy, whatever, whether it was signed in blood, whatever. There's a spirit to it. And you have to let it know that you are the priest of that. You have to let it know that, it's like when I got this one, it took me, I bet you, almost 3 days. It felt like a tug of war between me and that book, trying, because I was like trying to like connect with it, be like, this is mine, this is my baby, so forth and so on. And there's a spirit just like, it's like, no, you don't know, blah blah blah. And I'm like, no, we're friends, I'm the priest of this now. Let's go. Be nice. Be friendly unto me. Nuesita Samuki, priest of the Black Earth. But it's always important to know to do your banishings, cleansings, purifications, stuff like this. Enough can't be said about that. I didn't mean for this video to go on this long, but I wish each of you peace and blessings from the Black Tower. Till next time.